I advise you to repot this plant just only when it's super necessary. Hello everyone, I'm Adina from plantsbutbetter, and today I'm talking about Sansevieria Francisii or Dracaena Francisii because it has been shown that sansevierias are actually Dracaenas, but for the sake of this video I'm gonna keep calling them sansevierias because everybody knows them like that. This snake plant is super easy to care for. I would say it's a 9 out of 10, maybe quite a 10 out of 10 if you're careful with watering. So I would highly recommend this for beginners. It doesn't require a lot of attention from you, so you can neglect it and it will still grow just fine. Let's talk about light. Where should you place your plant? This Sansevieria prefers bright and direct light, even though it can survive in medium light as well. You can also leave it outside during summer in partial shade. It actually has better chances of growing if it gets gentle sun. Sansevierias in general have a reputation of surviving in low light, but with me I have the perfect examples on why you should keep your plant in bright, indirect light, because this one, as you can see, is slightly taller than this one. So the first one was kept under bright indirect light and the second one received medium light. And the differences are there. Good, what about watering? How often should you water your plant? I would recommend to check the soil before you water it, and please make sure your substrate is completely dry. Like most sansevierias, this one doesn't like water. So for example, I water mine once every 2 to 3 weeks, even though this is in such a small pot. I recommend you do that as well. This doesn't like water, so it's best to be cautious. What about temperature? How hot she likes it? Most sansevierias prefer average temperatures. So I grow mine in 23 to 24 degrees Celsius. You can definitely go higher. Don't let it drop below 15 degrees Celsius because it can affect the foliage long term. Moving on to humidity, this Sansevieria likes it average. Somewhere between 40 to 60% is fine. So there is no need for misting, no need for a humidifier. Your plant is quite adaptable. How about fertilizing? How often should you feed your plant? I fertilize my sansevierias once a month during growing season, and usually in the winter time I stop because most plants go through dormancy and they stop growing. And the last thing you should do is to feed them. I use an NPK of 10-10-10 or 20-20-20 because I like to stay consistent, but you can use almost any fertilizer you have in your home. Moving on to substrate. This snake plant doesn't like to stay wet for a long period of time, so that's why I would recommend that you choose a mix that is very lightweight and can drain water really fast. For my plants, I use a mix based on cactus soil, some perlite and some coco coir, and that does the job quite well. You can also add a little bit of sand, but not too much because the soil will get quite soggy. But other than that, please make sure your substrate is very light so the roots can breathe. Oh, and by the way, don't keep it just in peat moss because peat moss is too acidic for this plant. The pH is way lower than what it needs. How about plastic versus terracotta? You can keep this plant in both. It's up to you. So I keep it in plastic because it's more convenient for me, but terracotta is a great fit as well. I think this plant will actually do better in terracotta because it will help the excess water evaporate faster, so you can give it a shot. Okay, moving on to repotting. I advise you to repot this plant just only when it's super necessary. If you see the roots coming out of the drainage pot, it's time to move out. From experience, I could tell that repotting often causes root damage and root loss. So only when you see roots coming out of the pot, choose a slightly bigger pot and you're good to go. Okay, now how do you propagate this plant? The easiest way to do it is by division, and what is interesting about this plant is that the new growth pattern will look a bit different than other sansevierias. The new pops will branch off the mother plant. I will post a picture right here, and that's why you can easily cut off the new growth and place it directly into soil or into water, depending on your luck. I like to place them into water, for example. That's just the safest bet. How about pests? pests. I find this Sansevieria very resilient to pests. I never had any problems with it, so I'm quite happy about that. But then it's best to check your plant every time you water it. So inspect it carefully to spot any problems in time. The only parasites that I could think of that can affect your plant, your Sansevierias, is maybe mealybugs and scale. But those are quite easy to get rid of, so there's no need to panic. And lastly, unfortunately, Sansevieria Francisii is not pet friendly, so I would keep them away from any pets. It's toxic and it could cause irritation and other side effects, so please be careful about that. And that's it with the care video. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. And until next time, take care of yourself and your plants.